Hi, welcome to Love Saranghae with Peter and Andrea. In the next 30 minutes, we'll take you on a journey into the exciting world of entrepreneurship, relationships, and the secrets behind achieving that coveted glow. Are you ready? Let's go.
Welcome back to another episode of Love Saranghae with us, Peter and Andrea. Today we have a very special episode for you. We have an absolute powerhouse in the room, someone whose presence, energy, and words don't just inspire, they ignite transformation. Sanyika, the Firestarter student, isn't just a speaker, he's a force. I had the privilege of hearing him speak twice at a retreat in Whistler with my peak performance coach, Hina Khan, and both times his words moved me to tears. His message is raw, it's powerful, and truly life-changing if you're open to it. So today he's here with us, and trust me, you do not want to miss this conversation. Welcome, Sanyika.
Thank you for having me here. It's a pleasure to be here with both of you.
Sanyika, I would love it if you could just tell our audience who you are and what you do.
Who am I? Is a really important question. I am the son of William Donnell Street and Diane Eileen Street. I am the husband to Katie Lynn Elise Rohana Street. I am the father to two kids, a 13-year-old bonus son, Elijah Baker, and a 3-year-old Ezra Ade Street, who holds my middle name. I am a former Division I basketball player, always an athlete. I'm the kind of man that moves mountains, both expected and unexpected, to create extraordinary. If some shit was going down in the parking lot, you probably want to have me with you. I'm that kind of guy.
How tall are you? Can I just interrupt?
I'm 6'8".
6'8". That's a force. And I think your biceps are as big as your thighs or the tires in the car. So yeah, I'd love to have Sanyika in my corner. You're gonna start a fire? You get the fire starter.
Absolutely. I am a bodybuilder.
Got it.
And I take great pride in going to the dojo every day. I go to the dojo with the intention of mastering the craft of I don't go to the dojo to build muscle. I go to the dojo to become better at being a man who dedicates himself to a process and a practice.
Perfect.
I am an avid listener. I am a man who is deeply dedicated to the sacred practice of being of service, specifically in the guidance and creating possibility for men to win the most powerful and important war that they will ever wage, which is the war within themselves, so they can create greater possibilities in the world that they're looking to create in their business and their personal life. And I'm a storyteller. I'm an artist. I've been writing poetry since I was in 4th grade, and I've been rapping since I was 12. I used to be a songwriter in Universal Music Group. I've written for 98 Degrees. I've written for Too Short, and I craft social impact pieces, telling spoken word storytelling, and do something called cinematic storytelling, which I do on stages around the world. So,
cool.
So yeah. Cool.
Did you have a hand in writing Shine After the Rain?
No.
98 Degrees?
No, I did not. No, I did not. But yeah, so all of that are components of who I am. And it's really interesting because in the conversation, and I'm sure both of you run into this quite often, is there's an eagerness to lead with what you do. But I'd rather people know who I am so they can basically, identify for themselves the type of individual that they're dealing with. Because what I do is only secondary to who I am and who I choose to be. So the man that I choose to be is of utmost importance to me. It's of utmost importance to the people that I serve. And I think that from that place where I get to operate in my power as a coach, operate in my power as a speaker, operate in my power as a storyteller, it emerges from that place of that man that I choose to be. So everything that I do gravitates around that.
Powerful. Absolutely.
There's a natural transition line. The journey is deeply rooted in transformation. Can you share a little bit about where you came from and how you've arrived doing the incredible work that you do?
For sure. the way that I look at this is the transformational journey. You're at a fork in a road. You're at an inflection point in your life. Have either of you ever been at an inflection point?
I'm sure. I'm sure. I think getting married was probably an inflection point, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. And what I would call that is when we reach that fork in the road, I call that the two initiations. So you have two initiations. You have the initiation that's either going to take you to becoming the greatest aspect of yourself, or you have the initiation that's going to take you through the process of helping you understand a greater version of the lessons that you need to go through so that you can become the greatest version of yourself. Both initiations are valid, but one initiation is going to get you to the next level, and one initiation is going to bring you into a circle back to the inflection point so that you can then transition into the next level. I'll give you an example. It's like in the context of dating, I used to date the wrong woman over and over again.
Yeah. We all, a lot of people do.
Right. In many contexts, I've heard people go, when it comes to being in a relationship, you need to choose the right woman. Yes. And to choose the right woman, you got to be the right guy.
Fair enough.
It would not be fair for me to assign that she needs to be the right person when I haven't become the right man. So being with the wrong person brought me back to the lessons that I needed to learn, initiated me in the process of the lessons that I needed to learn so that I could then transcend to meeting the right woman, right? So that's the idea, is that one initiation gets you to the next level. One of initiation brings you into a circle to bring you back to the inflection point to go, who do you really want to be?
Yeah, yeah.
So in my transformational journey, to your point, Andrea, is that personally, I was at a rock bottom sandwich. And I call it a rock bottom sandwich because I was already at rock bottom, and then rock bottom sort of like smashed on top of me. So, it was like I was, 10 years ago at this point, I was financially broke, emotionally broken, 2 DUIs, girlfriend paying the bills, 40 pounds overweight. My life was pretty much a mess. No idea of what it meant to step into my leadership. And man, I used to operate, even as I look back on it right now, I used to operate with all of the preconceived media run thoughts about what it meant to be a man, to be a leader, to be all of this kind of stuff. And all I'm looking at as I'm pushing away these constructs, I'm just witnessing myself suffering. So I'm pushing away the idea of what it means to be a leader, pushing away the idea of inhabiting a role, pushing away the idea of what it meant to be in a place of emotional regulation. And so those results that I identified, broken emotionally, all that kind of stuff, those essentially were results of a man who was suffering. And the reality is that I hadn't learned how to win that war within. I didn't understand what was governing me. So all I was being governed by was my external circumstances. And so I was just being governed by the fact that I was lost in everything. And then the most beautiful thing happened, and this is the part where the miracle of life occurs. I have experienced this because the way that I experienced it was that I was lost. There was no logical, linear pathway forward for me at the time. And then someone gives me an opportunity, say, hey, look, I'm a part of this collective of entrepreneurs in LA, which is where I live. And they said, I'm a part of this collective of entrepreneurs in LA. And they said, I want you to come to one of the meetings that we have on Saturday. Every Saturday is about 130 men showing up in a room. I was like, why is it only men? That was
good question.
Right. But it was defensive though. I was like, why is it only men? I was like that. Why is it only men? That was one. Second up, it was men who were older than me. Third, it was men that didn't look like me. I'm like one of maybe 5 black guys, maybe the majority of the guys are Caucasian. So I'm just like, all these preconceptions.
And you're probably towering over them, right? So you walk in, you're like, oh, who's that guy?
Who's that guy, right? And then all of a sudden, not only do I come in there, but they embrace me. And then I'm thinking to myself, what's happening? What do they see that I don't see? Because they see something, but I don't see it. And there's this quote by Les Brown. He says, sometimes you need to believe in somebody else's belief in you until your belief is strong enough to kick in.
I believe that.
So what essentially happened is they saw who I was, they saw who I could be, And they were creating a pathway for me to come into alignment with the being that man. And the pathway for me to being in alignment was that I had to become a man of integrity. I had to be all in. And so in my life, I was not a man of integrity. And at the surface level, it's honoring your word. But the reality is that I didn't even honor my word with myself. I didn't trust myself. So given the fact that I didn't trust myself, I was in an environment now, a dojo, where I was able to now refine myself and sharpen myself along with other men. So now I'm in this environment that I miraculously ended up in. Could I have replicated the sequence of events that got me into that room? Probably not. So then the question is from that perspective, is that how did I end up in the room? And I ended up in the room the same way that anyone who goes through a transformative experience does. Because while I may not be able to have replicated the sequence of events that occurred that brought me into the room, I for sure know exactly what happened. Is that I got to the moment where I surrendered. I said, I don't got this. I no longer got this. I no longer got this. I recently did an episode this past week on my new podcast, Going All In. And I was talking to somebody, I said, it's a really bad idea to prove scientifically that God exists. It's a really, really bad idea.
Yeah.
Because you can't. I was like, how can you scientifically prove that God exists? Like, you could scientifically, historically sort of prove the sort of the lineage of events that happened in Jesus' time. And even if you want to go into another religion or other, like you can do that kind of lineage kind of thing, but you can't scientifically prove that God exists. And I was like, the reason that you can't prove God exists is because God does not exist in the same sphere of science. And then I said this, which was a breakthrough even for me in that moment. I was like, because you can't even scientifically prove that love exists. Prove to me that love exists, like scientifically prove that love exists. And in that moment, what I realized is that love and God are both experiences that we have, and you must surrender yourself to that experience. But I was trying to control the outcome. I know, I got it. Don't need it. I know. And I was like, nope, I don't know. And every time I have surrendered, I have achieved something extraordinary. It's miraculous. It is the miracle of life. It's the mysticism of life. It is one of those moments that where you give yourself and it's like, oh, this is where I get to have this amazing experience that I didn't necessarily know was going to occur, but it occurred because of the fact that I created the possibility as a result of surrender. That was the breakthrough in that transformation. And so the initiation begins at the moment that you surrender. And then it's like, oh, I'm going to take you through these challenges, take you through these moments. You're going to have these moments where you want to go out, no, it's too much, too intense, too much sensation, too much feeling, too much this, all this kind of stuff. And it's like, no, I need you to keep going. I need you to keep going. I need you to keep going. And as a result of going through the experience, an extraordinary life waits for you on the other side, and you are brought into deeper gratitude and humility as a result of that experience because of the fact that you've been brought to it through these challenges that have initiated you into the ability to be able to hold that experience. So that was my transformational journey. It was a journey of initiation. It was a journey of surrender, and then a journey of humility in that the path is not one that I would be able to control or to manipulate, but one I had to surrender to.
Interesting. In that journey, I'm sure it wasn't smooth.
Oh, no.
How do you keep yourself focused on that journey? How do you remind yourself that the journey is the experience is worth it, and that you don't go back to what was before or take the easy road out?
So that's probably the most profound question I've been asked recently, Peter. And how do you not go back? Because going back is a really simple. It's logical to go back.
That's comfortable.
This is ridiculous.
Yeah.
I mean, when that idea of comfort comes in, I think that many people, the language that people use it's like, no, this just doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense that you all are building a business. It doesn't make sense to aspire to, while on paper it may make sense for that company to become 8-figure business or a 9-figure business or $1 billion business, that may be like aspirational. But the process that you need to go through to actually accomplish that is ridiculous. It's like ridiculous. That doesn't make
leaps of faith. Lots of leaps of faith, right? Lots of leaps of faith, sometimes blind, right?
Yes.
Yeah, incomplete information.
Yep.
Right? And it's an abyss. You walk into the abyss and you hope to God sometimes you land on your feet, right?
Without question, right? So yeah, I mean, it's like someone's looking at you like, why would you put yourself through that? This is the dumbest thing I ever heard in my life, that you want to create a business that is extraordinary. It's the dumbest thing in my life that you want to create like this extraordinary experience. Why would you want to be 8% body fat? Why would you want to, like, it doesn't make any sense. Like, it looks good on paper, but it doesn't really make sense once you start putting rubber to the road. So how do you stay in it? Here's how you stay in it. The first thing that I had to do again was to identify what the aspirational possibility was, like what was possible. But again, aspiration doesn't drive people to goal accomplishment. It is not the thing. It's not the thing. I can tell you that you look great in 90 days, but when I tell you that you got to wake up at that you may need to wake up at 4:00 in the morning, it's like what in the world,
Yeah.
I'm good. I'll stay this way.
Right, I'm good. I'm
Forget
out.
it.
Right. It's not even I'll stay this way. It's I want to do that. Just not today.
Just not
Just
today.
not today. Just
Or
not in this
now, or
moment.
not this
I'll kick it down the
I'll
road.
do it later.
Right, exactly.
Kick it down the road. That
Yeah.
can is getting kicked. It's a
Yeah.
bunch of cans on the road getting kicked down the road. So
Exactly.
So the aspiration, so there is a possibility, a twinkle of a star in terms of what could be, but here's the real where rubber meets the road is when you've just like, I've had enough. I've had enough. I've had enough. And I mean, and I'm talking about enough. I reached a point at that inflection point where I went on that initiation where I started to transcend. The most powerful catalyst is literally that 5-letter word. Starts with E, ends with H, enough. It is like, I am no more am I willing to take my face being dragged on the gravel at my own consent. I am no longer willing to take this. How do we get to the enough point though? Sometimes you get to the enough point by self-reflection. Man, I wish that was the case all the time. It is not.
Yeah.
Life's got to punch you in the gut.
Yeah.
Life's got to punch you in the face. Life, many times, brings us to that. What? When you get the divorce papers in the front door, oh shit, I need to be a better husband. Or I'm out, right? But or I could be like, this is the initiation. I've had enough of this exchange. I need to be a better husband. I've had enough. You know what? I stepped on the scale. You know what? It's not even I stepped on the scale and I saw myself, because what I've done is I've normalized the number that I see on the scale. But my kid came in the room and said, there was one time where a kid came in the room, he said, not in the room, we were on a walk. And he said, when's the baby due? I was like, what do you mean when the baby due? He said, because you look pregnant.
Whoa.
I was like, oh.
Ouch.
Kids tell the truth.
Oh man, here we
Kids are
go.
so honest, those little beggars.
He's like, you look pregnant. I said, oh, that's really, yeah, he was honest and he was awful. I was like, but he was spot on. So that was the thing. Seeing my wife not being in love with the man that she saw, right? Like loving me, but not being fully attracted by the, not even necessarily because of my physique, but because of the fact that it was shown, it was a revelation of the fact that I wasn't disciplined in my own practices.
Yeah.
You're not the guy that she met at first, right?
Yeah.
The guy she met was disciplined, followed, was ambitious, followed goals, worked hard, but that went away.
Right. Yeah, he got comfortable.
You
right?
got comfortable.
Yeah.
Exactly. So then all of a sudden, when you get tired of the yo-yo in the business, when you get tired, it's like, no, I'm done. I'm done operating at this level.
Yeah.
I'm done operating at this level. I am
Very
done.
true.
I'm done. So that's the enough point.
Yeah.
But then what happens when you say enough? Because some people do is they go, all right, you can accomplish, you can reach $1 million. All right, how do I do it? How am I supposed to? How? Like that's the posturing with the how, right? It's like, okay, well, you tell. I had a client on the call the other day. He said to me, he said he's used to being in, like, he's a business owner and he does really great in his business or whatever. And I asked him a question. I forgot exactly what I said, but his posturing was like, so how am I supposed to do that?
You tell me.
I said, motherfucker, you tell me. I was like, you think you ain't here with these good, like, the little 60-minute coaches that try to get you in and out of the damn office? You dealing with the wrong person. That's not the environment that you came to play in. You tell me how.
Yeah.
If you're a resilient, powerful business owner who does extraordinary work, who is out here to create massive impact, and you're telling me that you've run into a roadblock and you can't figure out another opportunity or possibility in terms of creation? No, sir, you tell me how. I'll wait. I've got time. And the idea in that context is that that's what I got to. It's like, no, I've had enough of dealing with my own bullshit. So from that place, that energy of, because what that does, that I'm enough sets a foundational, a bottom. So then all you can do is either go to the top or pretend like you didn't create a bottom. So I'm like, hey, look, I've had enough. Now, what I do is that from that place of enough, it's powerful, it's creative, it's regenerative, it's all of those different things that are possible. And then what I do is I set a trajectory, and then I align myself with other people that have said that they've had enough too. Because usually the people that are living an extraordinary life, because I personally believe that that's the ultimate aspiration, is to live an extraordinary life, is that I now align myself with people who represent my new wall. What essentially happens is that usually when you are in that comfort space is that you surround yourself with people who also tolerate your bullshit, and the gravitational pull of your bullshit along with other people who tolerate their gravitational pull of your bullshit is that everybody is standing in manure. And that doesn't create the possibility of fertilization. And so what happens is that what you need is that everybody's standing in shit. And then the question is well, like, who's going to fucking fertilize the soil? So then somebody comes over and says, hey, look, guys, you know, everybody is like standing in this shit, right? Like all y'all are all standing in y'all, like I'm trying to figure out why y'all are all standing in this shit. And it's like, yeah, it's like, because this is just who we are, let us be who we are. I'm like, okay, great. I'm just going to go over. I am who I am. And so one of the principles that I live by is be who you are, be yourself. And to get where you need to go, you may need to become someone else.
Yeah, agreed. 100%. Yeah.
Be yourself. But you might be a jerk. You might be stubborn. You might be resistant. And this pattern may occur in other aspects of your life. 100%. And it may be creating a reciprocal pattern of frustration and suffering. And then that brings you to your circle initiation, right? You're coming back to the initiation right there. So do you want to go this way or do you want to keep going around in a circle?
Yeah.
So just to summarize, Peter, in that context is like, look, I have to come to the place where I'm willing to surrender. I have to reach that enough point to the aspirational identity. And then I reach an enough point where this enough point where I say, it's not enough like I'm lost. It's enough like I know that there's a greater possibility within me. And now I need to align with people that represent the pathway to this new possibility.
Yeah.
Beautiful. That's
where Hannah is for me. I know you know Hannah, that's why I'm using her as an example, but Hannah Khan is that new possibility for me.
Interesting.
And that's why I'm in her energy as much as I can, whenever I can, because it's really powerful what can happen when you're in a place of possibility.
Sanyika, I've got a curious question. I got a personal question, actually. Well, not personal, but so you were a Division I basketball player, right? Yeah. So if you're that good as a Division I basketball player, it means that your life was dedicated towards going to the NBA or becoming a really, really good athlete, because you were a really good athlete, probably an elite athlete, and you had the chance to go to that next level. Mm-hmm. And if you played in the NBA for a little while, maybe not, and then you had to transition out, there is a phase of life where a singular goal disappears, and you must find that path again, something to drive you forward again. Some people don't find that path. Some people find it fast. Some people take 10 years to understand, you go through all your life with a singular goal so clear in front of you, and then the world opens up. You have 100 doors, you don't know where to go, and you have to find the path. How was that journey like for you? Can you share that with me?
Yeah, I for sure will share it with you. It's a really important context, and it applies across different disciplines, whether it's athletics or that one singular goal. Being a doctor, being an engineer, being a Nobel Prize winning scientist. It could be across many different disciplines. Here's the way that I look at it. I went to my son the other day, and I'm going to be transparent with both of you, because this was the conversation I had to him, because I was looking to create a breakthrough with him. He's 13 years old. He's in 8th grade. He's about to go into 9th grade. He's playing football. And in 8th grade, one of the coaches, he said that 8th grade is where most kids stop playing football, because when you go from 8th grade to 9th grade, you're playing high school.
High size difference.
And it's a bigger, and the kids are my size.
Yeah.
And you got those kids running a 4.4 flat.
Yeah.
Running at you full speed, and it's a different game, you know? So I went to him and I told him, when you tell someone that you're a Division I athlete, many people think that you're the best of the best. And to some degree, that's true. So we did some math. This is recent. This is like in the past week and a half. 924,000 kids played high school basketball. Out of the 924,000 kids that play high school basketball, 5,607 make it to Division I basketball on 325 teams. Of those 325 teams, I would say maybe there was a smaller portion that play in what they call like power conferences or whatever. I didn't play a power conference. Played in a conference called the MEAC. On my team, this is what I told them. I was not the most talented offensive player. As a matter of fact, I'm not even sure I was the most talented defensive player on the team. So I wasn't the most talented offensive player. I wasn't the most talented, I wasn't the most gifted, skilled offensive player. We had people on our team who scored more points. I wasn't the most talented defensive player. We had people who played better man-to-man defense, that kind of thing. I said, so if I wasn't the most talented offensive player and I wasn't the most talented defensive player, I was like, why did I start every game? Why was I a starter on every game? I was like, because while many kids focused on the goal of being, of what they do, I was focused on more who I was choosing to be. The reason I started every game is because I was always a leader. And regardless of that, I made myself indisposable because I was a leader. Team captain, couldn't get me off the court, at big games, but the reality is that they needed me on the floor. They needed my leadership on the floor. So then what happens is that the reason that someone gets so focused is that they become what they do. They don't become who they are. They're so attached that goal. It's like, I'm going to make it to the NBA, right? And it's not that the NBA could be a milestone in my objective of creating this powerful, dynamic experience of life. It's like, I got to make it to the NBA because when I make it to the NBA will make me. So that's like the idea. It's like, when I make it to the NBA, that's when I'm going to be successful.
Yes.
I just recently saw this, and I did another episode on this past week I recently saw Anthony Mackie on the Pivot podcast talking about success. And I thought this was the most powerful thing, because I think this speaks even deeper to what you were just asking, Peter, is that he said, I used to think that success was earned. And then I realized that success is not earned, it's given. And I said, okay.
That's interesting.
That was interesting. He said, so success, he said, think about it. He said, out of all y'all, and he's on there with former NFL players. He said, out of all y'all here, he said, all y'all were talented and you were really gifted and everybody was skilled and everything like that. He said, but if somebody didn't tap you on the shoulder, none of y'all would have made it to the NFL. Somebody had to give you the opportunity to be successful, right? In the NFL, somebody had to tap you on the shoulder. Somebody had to tap you on the shoulder. Somebody had to tap you on the shoulder. He's like, I was on Broadway, and independent films, Academy Award winning films, and then now I'm Captain America. He's like, but I wouldn't be Captain America hypothetically if somebody didn't tap me on the shoulder, so I wouldn't have been successful. And I was like, oh, this is the same reason that those kids who are trying to fight to the NBA keep on getting messed up, is because they're not having a conversation about whether success is given or success is earned. They're having a conversation about the misinterpretation of what success actually means. They're misinterpreting what success means.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. He's not talking about success. He's talking about selection. He's saying, if somebody didn't tap you on the shoulder, then you wouldn't be successful. No, my brother, you're saying you wouldn't be selected for the NFL, selected for an Academy Award winning film, selected for Captain America. You were selected. For every Michael Jordan that's fit, they always say it's 50 other players that didn't get picked. Agreed. Michael Jordan was selected for University of North Carolina. He was selected for the Bulls, but that doesn't mean that the other 49 people can't be successful, because what they do is they keep on thinking that success is selection.
Yeah.
I'm like, look, you think that if I was selected to the NBA, that would have been the entirety of my success? No, that would have been my selection to say I'm validated, that now that you've made me. But they don't want to be dragged on the floor, because what happens is that when you allow yourself surrender to a process, what happens is that if for every Michael Jordan that made it, you telling me that Steve Kerr is not successful?
Agreed.
Are you
Agreed.
kidding?
Yeah.
Of course Steve Kerr is successful, but he's not Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan was selected to be the player. Steve Kerr went through it and became a coach. He gave himself a longer time horizon on what success meant. He gave himself more grace. He stepped into greater skills development. He understood his value, what his contribution to the world is. Everybody operates on a finite time horizon, a much myopic view, and like, this is the only way that success can look. And I'm like, look, I was operating the same way, and I needed a mentor to grab me and pull it apart to the degree where they said, look, this is not the only way. This is not the only way. This is not success. You're talking about selection. You're talking about those people who get chosen for a specific assignment. But guess what? God has a specific assignment on your life. And if you just surrender to it, if you just surrender to the idea that if you go through the specific set of challenges to increase your value, your strength, your emotional ability to navigate challenge in the world, then you can create something extraordinary with your life. And it doesn't always have to look like being a professional athlete.
Agreed. In fact, it's probably the opposite. Having one myopic, very narrow view of success is not the right answer, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's like, how much suffering?
Yeah.
How much suffering? I didn't make it I wasn't selected.
Yeah.
I'm not the one.
My life is over.
Yeah.
My life is over.
Yeah.
And then that becomes your entire world. That athlete is dealing with that. He's like, my world is over because I wasn't selected. And I'm like, first of all, dude, you weren't even dedicated to a process. You were in a process to get a six-pack for the summer. That's why I'm like, look, I don't do processes. I was so outcome driven instead of being process oriented. I surrendered myself. God said, look, I'm going to give you a second chance at life. And here's where you're going to build yourself. You're going to build yourself in the gym, and you're going to refine yourself in a gym lifting weights. It's a passionate pursuit. It's a place you like. So build yourself here. And here's what you're going to do. You're going to go there every day that you choose to go, 5 days a week, sometimes 6. And here's what you're going to do. You're going to put yourself through challenges on a daily basis. These challenges are going to bring up sensations in your body, and you're going to be navigating through these sensations. And here's what's going to happen. Along the way, I'm going to put you through things that are going to bring you to your knees. Peter, I never did a leg day in my life up until 2 years ago. I used to be the CEO and founder of We Skip Leg Days Anonymous. I was the one who was skipping. I was like leading the charge. I had men out there with signs, and we were like, we skip leg day. We skip leg day. Like, everyone was going like, yeah, let's do it. It's great. And then I was like, no, I can't do this anymore. And now it's one of my best days. And I said, I'm going to put you through these challenges, put you through this adversity, put you through these moments. And then what you're going to do is you're not going to leave it in the gym. You're going to understand that this is a metaphor for life. And then you're going to integrate it across every aspect of life, in business, in fatherhood, in fitness, in nutrition, in every aspect of your life. It's an integrative process. So now what people are going to come to you and they're going to say, man, they're going to say, like, how did you get such big muscles? And then I'm going to say, oh.
Overnight, baby. Overnight.
Exactly. I'm going to say, well, the reason that I actually got big muscles is because I stopped trying to get big muscles. And I just surrendered myself to a process.
There you go. Yeah, I agree 100%. I really liked your comment about Jordan and Steve Kerr, because I'm a big fan of Coach Jordan Wooden. I think he's a fantastic human being from what I've read, and I really resonate with his teachings. But I'll bet at one point in time he thought he was a failure as a player.
For sure.
And he became one of the greatest coaches and probably one of the greatest mentors of young men that ever lived. So he kind of missed, his destiny was something greater, and he probably thought he was a failure somewhere along the way.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, I would opine that is about probably 1 billion % accurate. We ran a UCLA offense in junior college. So we ran a UCLA offense. And that was my first real introduction to John Wooden, because I played with a coach who played with Sam Jones, who played with the Boston Celtics. And so that approach to coaching is actually what my junior college coach, who I consider to be my best coach that I ever had, taught me. He taught me about the game, but it was also something, Andrea and Peter, about the idea that it's different when you're in an environment with someone that cares about your life. And he's willing to hold the standard. And the reason that he's holding the standard is because that standard, and this is one of the other things that I realized, is that I was a man who didn't have standards. And when you say standard of excellence, then people hear the word excellence, but really what it is a standard of being. It's a standard of who you choose to be. Like, I don't wake up in the morning, my alarm goes off at 3:55 and see Pippin's at 4 a.m. and it's like, oh yeah, he's like committed to excellence. I'm committed to an extraordinary life. And I've identified that there are some different pathways and possibilities in terms of who I get to be and how that gets to be modeled so I can create an extraordinary life. And I don't do it with resistance. I'm not like fighting myself. I'm just like, this is who I choose to be, And so we get to do that as we get to create extraordinary wealth from the 5 pillars of our lives: your faith, your fitness, your family, your finances, and your fulfillment, right? So you identify what an extraordinary life looks like, and then we get to create trajectory from there so that we can do that. And we align ourselves, associate ourselves with powerful people who hold the same standards. And then as a result, a rising tide lifts all ships.
Love it.
So I look to be the standard in whether or not someone calls it excellence. I just look to be the standard. I am the standard, and I hold it. And it's a sacred responsibility, and I value it. And I'm honored that I've gotten some possibly similar to John Wooden at this point in my life when I used to think I was a failure. And I had gone through my own initiation to get to the place where I can be a guide of a man who operates in his power to help men activate their power. And then from that, to me, that's the pathway that creates a better world for women, for children, for business, and in every aspect of life.
Amen, brother. Amen.
Received on that, man.
Sanyika, you do a lot of work specifically with married businessmen as a masculinity coach, helping them to raise the bar, as you've been saying, and not just their business, but also their personal lives. Why do you focus specifically on this group of men specifically, and why is this work so important to you?
So, there's a context around masculinity. I don't necessarily consider myself a masculinity coach. I consider myself a business and leadership mentor to men. And do we talk about masculinity? Absolutely. And here's the reason that we talk about it. The simple answer to your question, Andrea, is because I surrendered to it. God called me to it. And I'm done sending calls to voicemail. Is that there are so many people who will tell you all the problems that are wrong with men. They will tell you about the devastation associated with men. They will tell you about all of the issues and things and challenges that men have brought, quote unquote, into this world. But they won't tell you where a man can go to optimize and to refine himself. They'll just tell you about the problem. And personally, I have a vested interest in this. I am a man. I have 2 boys. I'm surrounded by men that want to continue to level up themselves and to raise the bar in terms of how they show up in their life. And in that context, like when I first met my wife came to me, she said, I think you should work with men. I was like, that's stupid. Dumb. Who would do that? That doesn't even make any sense.
Wise words.
Right, yeah, exactly. And I was like, and the reality is that I continue to feel called to it. So the thing about it is that there are some very specific things that men navigate in this world to become greater versions of themselves. And there are some aspects of their past and traumas in childhood that need to be resolved. There's some aspects in terms of the wrestling with who they are as men in sexuality, in their intimacy, in their relationship, how they navigate their emotional experience of the world, and how that translates into creating an environment where they can optimize their business is really important. So it's like, sometimes a guy will come to me because he has a business thing, but it's really a personal thing that is informed by a business problem. Mm-hmm. And then the question then becomes, well, that question that you asked me at the beginning of this episode is probably the most important question that most men have and don't necessarily have really actually been able to answer. Who are you? From that place, every decision emerges. Every business decision, every relational decision, every parenting decision, every faith decision, it all emerges from that.
Yeah.
So who are you? And why are you here on this planet? That becomes the impetus for creation. And so I have developed the resolve to look at the women who have an issue with that pursuit, the men that have an issue with that pursuit, many of whom, like myself, like, what are you talking about? Why would you do that? And in a society that will give you all the problems associated with what's wrong with men, but they won't give you any of the ways that men can actually step into becoming the men that they choose to be. So, so why? Because
it's necessary.
It's necessary.
Yeah.
And it's necessary. And I'm strong enough to hold the space.
Yeah. No, I think for too long our society expects men to figure it out for themselves, or else you're weak. And that's not true.
No.
That is not true. It's necessary. It's good work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's the way that I approach it. That's the stand that I take. And there are opportunities that we've created that we continue to create to expand in this work, but it emerges from the work that we do with men and then builds from there.
Sanyika, you talk a lot, I guess the concept of going all in. And it seems like it is central to your philosophy. What does being all in mean to you? And what does it look like in practice? How can someone who feels stuck, for example, and not really all in their lives, how can they start to begin? Where do they start?
Where do they start? So here's the context that I have on this, is that in life we have a bar. There's a bar. And you're either operating above the bar or below the bar. You're always 100%. You're always committed. You're either operating above the bar or below the bar. And not to make a critical assessment or judgment on who you are as a person as to whether or not you're operating above or below the bar. But the question is, if you're operating below the bar, the question is, do you want to continue to operate below the bar, or do you want to operate above it? And so the idea around all in is that all stands for alignment and the IN stands for integrity. So those are the two aspects of any high-performing individual or organization. Are we moving in the same direction? Do we have the same beliefs, values, and our behaviors modeling that? And then are we people that honor our word? Honoring your word. So one of the documents that I have when someone first works with me is a document called Becoming the CEO of Your Life, where you have to remember these 5 principal philosophies of what it means to be all in. And why is because many of us move through life without necessarily having a very clear definition of what governs who we are. Right? What governs who we are. And to me, integrity is it has 2 definitions. It means honoring your word. So what's the full definition of integrity? Full definition of integrity is honoring your word. This is the exact definition that someone is asked to remember in that context. Honoring your word, which includes keeping your word. And in the event that you are human, and you are, essentially it says reading this, but if you are human, that you are honorable enough and accountable enough to acknowledge if you issued your word and did not honor and did not keep your word, that you would acknowledge what you said, apologize if you caused any harm, and create a new agreement that you will commit to emphatically. The reason why integrity is so important is because, as Werner Erhard from Landmark and a bunch of other people have realized, is that without integrity, nothing works. So what many people do is they're in an environment, home environment, a business environment, where nobody's honoring their word. Nobody's you can't trust. There's no backbone, there's no standard as it relates to that. So you're either a man of integrity or you're not. You're either committed to that or you're not. You're either committed to being someone that honors their word, that actually says, hey, look, this is who I'm going to be, that you can trust me, that I am going to do everything within my human power to honor my word. And if there's anything that operates outside of that, that I will acknowledge that I issued it. There's a distinction between honoring and keeping your word. Keeping your word means doing what you said you're going to do. Honoring your word means the fact that you either kept it or that you issued it, and that you know that now it's out in the universe and that you said this thing. If I tell my investors that I'm going to create a $1 billion company with $10 million of their investment capital, and that they know that there is a risk associated with that investment, but I tell them that we're going to make this $1 billion company, and that we don't make the money, and we don't make the business fails, What happens is that many times that guy goes, you know what, we failed, I'm just going to go and do something else. I'm like, look, before you do something else, dude, you got to make sure that you show up for these people. They knew that they were investing capital in the business. They knew that there was a possibility or a risk. Some of them may have sort of vaguely thought that there was a possibility, there wasn't a possibility. But the reality is that in that moment, what they're actually asking you to do is to show up.
Mm-hmm.
What they think in their mind is they go, oh, well, they're going to judge me. They're going to do all this other kind of stuff. I'm like, nah, dude, they actually gave you the money because they needed you to show up. They needed you to do the press conference and sit in front of everyone and tell everyone that we fell short of expectation. And that individual is actually an investable person because that person is a man of integrity. And they're like, oh, well, they're not going to invest in me because I didn't make the money. I'm like, no, knucklehead, no, that's not the way it works. If you just showed up in that and you were open to it, then they would actually go, you know what? He's right. He's right. Maybe we fell short of expectation. Let's see how we can make the adjustments and then do a pivot and then go from there. Right.
Yeah.
So that becomes the foundation of this. So where does one start in this journey to realize whether they are above the bar, honoring their word, or they're not, showing up or they're not? You start by getting environmental feedback. Why? Feedback is the breakfast of champions. People will come to me and they be like, sometimes I think people expect me to just be like, berate them. And I'm like, no, I'm not here to berate you. Like, I'm here to listen. I'm not gonna I don't play gobbledygook with bullshit, but like, I'm not here to like berate anybody. I was like, look, your wife is telling you some stuff that you say, whatever, that is happening in your dynamic in your marriage. I was like, look, here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna show up at the press conference, and what you're gonna do is you're gonna go to them, and then you're gonna do a 360 survey. You're gonna do a survey. You're gonna ask them questions about how you show up and their perception of it. And you're going to ask them questions about how you show up and their perception of how you show up, and then be open to the idea that whatever their perception is not who you are, it's just their perception. And then you're going to be able to objectively look at their perception and to see if those are opportunities for you to step into a greater sense of growth. What's the best way to do it? Get some feedback. Because if you're living in a world that is not optimal, below the bar, then it would be great to see what the environment is saying about you. If you are in an environment where you do get to level up the game, it would also be great to get a feedback survey so that you can see where you can take things to go. Because now it becomes a different kind of, maybe a different set of questions, but it's brainstorming. It's like, where can I get the next idea from? Feedback is the breakfast of champions. It will always be regenerative in its essence. It's always going to give you the nuggets, the gold for an individual that wants to play life above the bar. That's pretty much it. Now, the majority of people don't want to play above the bar. And there's some factors that we've identified from a quantitative standpoint is that, many guys, talk about becoming the best version of himself. I'm like, look, yeah, I mean, I've heard that before, like becoming the best version of yourself, but how would you really know if you're the best version of you? How would you know? You would only know if you were measuring yourself against what the best could be, like a standard, right? So we identify some quantitative standards, like from a family perspective, marriage satisfaction score. It's like 100 guys were surveyed. On a scale of 1 to 10, guys who are below the bar, how much would you believe that they would rate their marriage, satisfaction in their marriage on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the best, 1 being the worst? What do you think most guys would rate the satisfaction in their marriage at?
Guys, say 9.
9. Wow, you have faith in humanity.
No, I'm just saying that's the delusion that guys would be under.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
They were rated as a 9, right?
Yeah. They were rated as a 9. Yeah.
They were rated as a 9.
Yeah.
Right? But their partner were rated as a 6.
Probably a 4.
Right.
Yeah.
So now it's like, oh, well, do you want to play marriage at the 6, or do you want to bring it to a 9? Because you can't bring it to a 9 in your mind while your partner has it as a, because that means that both of y'all are on the same page.
Yeah.
So then if that is the question, then where do you want to play life at? So now you get to be in the question, do I want to be above the bar or do I want to be a little below the bar? Because if you're around other people who go, yeah, you know what, it's all good, man. Happy wife, happy life, happy life, happy wife, happy life. We can just go and just, coast through this whole thing. And I'm like, nah, man, that's not the life I want to live. I can't tell you how many people I've been around that that walk around with this low-level hum of depression and dissatisfaction in the context of a relationship where they literally go and they talk about how unsatisfied they are with their marriage. I'm like, I've heard about those people. I don't spend time with those people, but man, it's pervasive. And part of the reason why that exists is because when you're not around people who don't hold that, who accept that you're standing in the manure, and they don't go, yo, like, this is a really good time to really pour some water, like to stand in fertile soil, then all you do is end up standing in manure. That becomes your existence. I'm not down to play that game of life. You know, so where do you start? You start with breakfast. Where do you start your day? You start with breakfast. And feedback is the breakfast of champions.
You gotta figure out your map.
You'll get out all the information that you need to know from some feedback, for sure. Now, if you don't get the feedback, then you just live with the hallucination. You live with the
Yeah.
True enough.
You know, when I heard about you working with married men who are professionals, and I was curious, like, a lot of people have the idea that if you're successful in business, you can't be you can't be a success in everything. Something's got to give, right? But the way I see it is the way you do one thing is the way you do other things, everything. So if you're trying to be successful in business, but you're falling short at home, eventually that's going to leak into the other parts of your life that may be going well at this point. So what would you say to that? What would you say to someone who said, you know, you can't have it all.
Yeah. At
least business is good.
Yeah, I mean, that's a very common belief. It's a belief.
Yeah.
It is not a material fact. So the first thing that I have to ask myself, is it actually true? Like, unequivocally. And for the scientific or the logical leaning guys that, you know, that enter into that conversation, I'm like, no, really, is it true? Like, is it verifiable that you can't have it all? Or have you come to the conclusion that you can't have it all? Because that's what I really think is happening, is that guy goes, I can't have it all. Yeah. Because they haven't accepted radical responsibility for their life. They haven't said that in the matter of my experience of life, I am cause. I am cause. If I am not having it all, it's not because of my business, it's because I believe I can't have it all. That's what's happening. So this context then goes like, it goes, oh, well, if you believe that you can't have it all, like what's the pathway to like creating that possibility? So one of and listen, there's even the guy, James Clear, who wrote Atomic Habits. He has this philosophy called the 4 burners philosophy. It's like, you got 4 burners, you need to get rid of 2, like family, fitness, faith, not family, friends, this kind of thing. So like, you can't have it all kind of thing. And I understand the context of where he's coming from. So the way that I work at it is from this perspective. Number one is that I have to come into the awareness that I'm the one who's creating this idea in my own head. I've just got to say that this is what's happening. If the success, I have to define what success in business looks like. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I can't operate on a construct of what success, the Anthony Mackie thing. It's like, success means that I'm going to have a unicorn company, because there's a preconceived notion in somebody's head that they're running with that myopic idea. I need to make it to the NBA. I need to make it to the NBA. I need to make it to the NFL. That's what success is. It is only going to look like when I'm standing on that stage next to Steve Jobs, holding that trophy. I don't even know if they hand out like a unicorn trophy, but I think guys think that there'll be like this trophy that says that you've created a unicorn. And here's the funny thing about this, Peter, is that many guys, when they get that, if they got that unicorn trophy, they would hold the trophy for 1 second, they'd put it down, and then they would move the goalpost.
Exactly. Yes. 10 billion. Right? Right? Exactly. 100 billion. Right. The richest guy in the top 10 richest guy in the world. Like, it just keep pushing it forward. You
keep moving the goalposts forward. And I'm like, dude, like, come on. So I have to identify what success is. And then I look at the people in my life, my wife, my kids, as stakeholders in that success. So now the question is how am I running my life as an organization? This woman came up to me and said, me and my partner are having some really challenging problems in our relationship. I said, understood, received. I said, can I ask you a question? She said, yeah. I said, what time is your regularly scheduled meeting with your partner to talk about your relationship and the logistics of your family life as an organization? And then she went, yeah, we meet every Sunday. It's like, kind of like around 3 or 4 or something like that. And we sort of meet. I was like, we actually don't have a meeting.
No, I don't think any people do.
I was like, look, there needs to be 2 meetings. There's a meeting about the logistics and the way that your family moves as an entity, and then about the relationship itself. And on that scale of whether or not you're below the bar, is like most guys spend a significant amount of energy and distraction. I'm like, look, if you show me your screen time, I'll show you your life, right? Show me your, the avoidance time, I'll show you your life. And so in that context, when I look at it, I go, oh, well, the reality is that if in those 2 specifically delineated periods of time, you could create so much alignment, so much shared vision so that you all can come into alignment with what success actually looks like and to be able to create a pathway forward. Now, if you can't create alignment in that context, there's 1 or 2 reasons. Number 1 is because neither of you understand the most important aspect in a relationship, or number 2 is because both of you haven't necessarily stepped into doing your own personal work. And so what many people think that the most important work in the context of a relationship is communication. And I can't tell you how incorrect that actually is. Like, if I could take off my pearls and my heels and I would take them off. It is not. The question is do either of you feel safe? The reason that most people don't hop into conversations with each other is because they don't feel safe with each other. And so the foundation of that is not communication, it's emotional regulation. You have not cultivated the ability to emotionally regulate. So if you can't, like, look, when you go to boot Navy SEALs training, they're not just teaching you how to shoot a gun, they're teaching you how to make sure you maintain your composure so that you can effectively execute the mission. When you go to police boot camp, they're not teaching you, like, all of these different environments. When you go to Wall Street, they're not just teaching you how to make trades, they're teaching you how to do it under pressure.
Yeah, emotional regulation.
Emotional regulation is the most critical aspect because that's the pathway to creating safety. Does she feel safe with me? Do I feel safe with her? Most guys haven't even asked themselves that question.
Yeah.
They actually operate, the masculine many times operates in service of the feminine, but what they do is they actually remove themselves. They don't even see themselves. Most guys haven't tapped into whether their desires, their wants, their needs, any of those things, nor have they established standards in the context of the relationship. So what it ends up being is this sort of like this gobbledygook where the guy goes, I need to find something that works and it has to have a clear start and finish business. This relationship stuff is too much. I don't know.
I don't want to go there.
Yeah, I don't want to go there. And many of the guys that they have around standing with them in the shit don't necessarily know how to go. And it's not an assignment on who those people are, but they haven't necessarily been around individuals that have gone and traversed through the manure to get to the side of the grass where it's greener. So that's also a pathway that it is in my intention to create.
Ooh,
excellent.
that's a lot.
Now, Andrea, it's been over an hour.
Yeah, I know.
We should probably.
We need to wrap this up, even though I could go on forever.
Yeah, it's excellent. We're going to protect
awesome.
Sanyika's time.
Sanyika, thank you for doing it. Is there any final thought that you'd like to just end with? I'd also love it if you could share how people can work with you, what programs you're offering, how people can connect with you, because I'm sure there'll be a lot of those.
Well, first and foremost, I just want to say thank you all for creating a space to share. It's really an honor to see you again, Andrea and Peter. Pleasure to meet you as well. I appreciate your questions and just who you be in this context. There's a few ways that people can interact with me. They can go to our website, the All In CEO. They can really ask if they're men that want to really create some full possibilities in their own transformation through our 3-day transformational experience, which is the initiation experience, where we take business owners and men out into a powerful experience and give them an opportunity to expand on many of the topics that we talked about today. And I create a space for a select few individual clients through individuals who apply. So that is always an opportunity for men that really want to take the next level in terms of their evolution as in their professional life and in their personal life as well.
Fantastic.
So I was just like, this conversation was incredible. We could really go on forever. The work with elite CEOs and high-level entrepreneurs isn't just about business success. It's about stepping fully into integrity, alignment, and impact in every area of life. Thank you from the bottom of my heart, for taking so much time to chat with us today. If today's conversation lit something inside of you, don't ignore it. Go all in and connect with Sanyika and learn more about how you can get the most out of this one beautiful life you have. I'll put everything in the show notes so people can easily find you. Thank you so much for today.
Indeed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
An absolute pleasure. Thank you both.
Pleasure's all ours. Thank you very much, Sanyika. Take care.
Take care. Bye.
Thanks for listening to Love Saranghae with us, Peter and Andrea. If you've enjoyed this episode, leave us a review. Your ratings and reviews help more people like you find our show. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode, and share this podcast with someone you think would love it. Until next time, love yourself, love one another, and love the world.